Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Hi, good morning, Jayant.
Morning. So, have anyone had any chance to practice? We had a long weekend this time. So, were anyone able to practice? All right. So, we will just rehearse through what we have seen in our previous classes. If you remember, we were dealing simultaneously with an Excel and an Windows-based application. If you remember, so I have this Excel file called report.xlsx. Where this data was not present before. So what UiPath does is I am feeding this data into my UiPath, where it is traversing through each row, getting into this Anytailor application, feeding the data into this application. Once the data has been fed, whatever transaction number is giving as an output, that information is getting back into my Excel. So that's how I'm able to fill this data for each row. So if it is a credit type cash or check, then it is able to successfully do it. If it is amount is negative and if credit type is cash, then it is a failure because that option itself is not there. Depending upon how the credit type and amount is, it was able to proceed accordingly and then fill in the data. So what we are able to learn in this particular scenario is how to use for each loops. So we have used for each loop in here. We also used for loop in here. So if you observe, we had so once you read the data in Excel application, the output we got is a data table. So to iterate through the rows present in the data table, we used for each row in the data table. This is one for each that we have used. The other one is where we are writing that back to where an Excel file. We were using a circular motion. If you observe in here. So you are also able to use a flowchart within a sequence as well. As I said, up to your convenience, whatever you feel more convenient, you can either use a flowchart or you can use a sequence. In fact, you can use a flowchart within a sequence or sequence within a flowchart. So, and how you get to decide what you need to choose is if it is a sequence of steps, if you feel like there is no decision box, there is no circular motion is involved, then you can go with pretty much sequence only. Otherwise, if you had to use a while statement or if there is circular motion or if the decision box in the path is getting split, then go with the flowchart. But if the number of steps are more than 10, I would not recommend using flowchart because again it gets complicated. Within the 10, the number of steps are within the range of 10, somewhere between 8 to 12. And if there is a decision or while involved, then you can go with the flowchart. Clear? We were able to read into an Excel file. We were able to write values into Excel file. We were able to read something from a Windows application. We were able to write something into a Windows application as well. So any doubts on that?
One doubt here, Jayant. So
Yeah.
every time you are like opening the Excel and closing, writing the data and closing. So can't we write can't we close the Excel at the last? Do we need to close every time?
Yeah, if you want to do that right, so what you need to do is you need to keep that in the Excel application score. If you observe, so I can make that possible. Let me show how it can be done. Look at the code and try to understand what's happening. So what I'm doing is I'm iterating. This is my for each row, right? I'm iterating to the each row, okay, getting the row items, and then this is where I'm feeding the data to the application, and then in that each row only I'm opening and closing the Excel file. So my open and close Excel file are present within the loop. That is what causing me to open and close that Excel file every time. If my open Excel, close Excel are coming outside the loop, and the actions are present inside the loop, then I'm opening the Excel only once. So all I have to do is this right cell value, this application scope should come outside. So what I will do is I'll minimize the do scope here first. I'll bring it out. I'll take this Excel scope. I'll put it outside the loop. I'll cut this one. Minimize the for loop. Paste it here. And then drag and drop this inside. Now my Excel application scope, so my launch and close Excel came outside the loop. Now if I execute this one, so let me delete these two data, rerun this again. Okay, so let me run the normal run. Okay, let me delete it again and show you normally. I'll minimize it and run. Okay. If you observe now, my Excel is open all the way and the data is feeding in real time. Clear?
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Okay. Depends upon where you're placing open and close. If you're placing inside the loop, that action is getting called every time the loop is getting executed. So every time my Excel file is getting closed and opened, reopened. So what I have to do is I have to put that Excel application scope outside the for loop, and that made me do it only once. Clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So let us talk about how these input click, all these work against these applications. Let me create a new project. I wanted to show you the variances, how these happen. All right, so I'm just creating a new sequence to show you the differences between how different can these things be. So now, if you talk about click action or if you talk about write action, right? So irrespective of what kind of application you are using, the click action, the input action will be the same. However, they differ on where you are using them. What does it exactly mean? We'll try to understand what it means. So Let me drag and drop, and let me try to click something on a Windows based application, write something on a Windows based application. So what is my first step? My first step is to open application, right? So that is my first step. So let me open a Windows based application. I use this action called as open application. The moment I drag and drop an open application, the application scope will come. So anything I want to do within this application should be written within this do scope, right? So which application I want to open? So let me open this Anyteller itself, or I'll open my CRME. So for instance, we haven't used this. So indicate windows on screen. So this is a window. So I just indicate that window on the screen. Okay. Now when I drag and drop the click action, what is the text you got here? Indicate element inside window. Alright. And when I drag and drop the input action, so not this one. Type into what you got, indicate element inside the window. So it is asking to indicate as the element inside the window where it needs to perform the click value, and it is asking me to indicate inside the window where it is asking me to perform the right value. So when I click on this, and then well, let's say okay, I want to click on this particular tick, it has taken, and if I click on okay, I want to file this particular value, it is taking that, right? I want to write some value here, something like that. Okay. Now if we observe the actions it got are indicate the element inside window, indicate the element inside window. Now what I'll do is, instead of opening a Windows application, I want to open a browser. So let me minimize this open application. Now let us say that I want to open a Chrome browser, or I want to open Internet Explorer, and then I want to write something into that browser. Now what should I do is, similarly how I have open application, I also have open browser. So I'll just drag and drop open browser, and then specify the URL here. Obviously, I'll just give Google. And you drag and drop the same actions, that is click action. The same action will be showed differently because you're using in a different scope. Now you can see it says indicate element inside a browser. So UiPath is intelligent enough to understand what you are planning to do. Here, when you drag and drop the click action, it should indicate inside the window. When you drag and drop inside the browser scope, it shows indicate element inside the browser. You have used the same action, you have used click action there also, you have used click action here also, but it was sharp enough to understand what you are planning to do here. It knows that you are planning to click on the browser rather than a Windows application. The same thing goes for type into also. So when you drag and drop type into, it asks indicate element inside the browser. It was intelligent enough to understand that you are planning to do something inside a browser, not inside a Windows application, because you are writing this in the do scope. So when I choose this one, so you will be able to choose inside the browser element. You guys clear? So the same action will be used differently against different kind of applications. The moment you drag and drop, it will automatically modify to or alter that one that you need to. You guys clear?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to show this difference, how it's used. Let me close this. Go back to my previous project. Ooh. All right. Let us talk a bit about architecture of UiPath. So if you talk about any RPA tools architecture, in architecture, the components that are present in any of the RPA tools is client. That is where you start developing your bots or start coding. That is where you code. So in UiPath, it is called as UiPath Studio. This is where you write your code, you build your programs, all that is done within the client. And then there is control room. This is where you run the or execute the code. You can schedule, execute, and monitor the code that you have written. This is where the control room is. So control room is where you will be able to schedule any bot that you have deployed. You can execute any bot. Okay. I can also monitor the code execution without logging into the server. So in UiPath terminology, it's called UiPath orchestrator. We also have something called as a service, runtime service, which runs in every machine, which keeps the UiPath active. It kind of connects between the client and the control room. So in UiPath's language, this is called as UiPath robot. We also have something called as release manager, where you have version controlling. You can release, export the code from one machine to another. All that comes under. So this release manager is part of the UiPath publish. Let us try to understand how these particular things, the whole things fit into the real-time world. See, ideally what happens is in any company, if you take, there will be at least 10 to 15 developers working for UiPath. No ideal world scenario. All right. So how many clients do you expect? Each developer will have his own UiPath studio to, or his own UiPath machine to, a machine which has UiPath to start coding. Right. So what happens is these 10 developers will start using 10 UiPath studios in their machines, which are also called as 10 different clients, where they start coding. However, they have only 2 to 3 production runtime servers where they execute this code. It's not like whatever they're developing, they run it throughout the day. They run it only for 5 minutes or 10 minutes daily, or depends upon how the frequency of the process is. Right. So they have only 2 to 3 different servers where they're planning to run this code. All right. So there will be an operate team or there will be a runtime team who has this kind of a dashboard called as control room in their at their end, where they can actually manipulate which code should run in which machine. Okay. So if you talk about an overall architecture, so these are clients which developers will use. Okay. So and these are runtime servers or production servers where the code is actually getting executed in production. They are called as runtime resources or simply production machines. These are development servers. And these are prod servers, production servers. All right. So you are writing your code in here and you are planning to run this code in the production servers. So how can you do this is with the help of control room. Control room lets you run your code that has been built in the development servers. That code can be executed or scheduled in the production servers with the help of control room. Now, how this mapping is done? So the connection is done using UiPath robot. So how the control room is connected to the client and the runtime resources using UiPath robot. It's nothing but the service that is running in between in these machines. So your robot is nothing but your UiPath robot is nothing but a service that is running, an agent or a service that is running in development server. That is also another agent or service that is running in the production server, and this service kind of connects with the control room to receive the commands. Do I need to run command? Do I need to publish command? So development service will give the so control room will give the publish command to the clients. The client control room will give the run command to the production servers. The publish command will publish the code in the development servers. The run command will run the commands, run the published code in the runtime resources. Let us look in real time how this actually works. Okay, so this is my client. My UiPath Studio is my client. So far, whatever code we are writing is been getting written in my client server. This is a dev server. Let us think. Now, how do I publish this into the orchestrators? First, I need to show you how an orchestrator is present. Okay, so let me open orchestrator. Orchestrator is a web application. Like how my client is a Windows based application. So this is a Windows based application. My client is a whereas my control room is a web. So let us see how the control, how an orchestrator is present. When I say control room, it actually means orchestrator. The reason why I am using the word control room instead of orchestrator is only in UiPath it is called as an orchestrator. In Blue Prism, in Nice, in Automation Anywhere, in WorkFusion, every other tool it's called as control room only. For specific reason, I'm not sure why, but UiPath has started using a different terminologies entirely. Anyways, so you can go to demo.uipath.com, and if you are registering for a new account, then you need to click on become a tenant. So let us create a new one. So I'll just call this as the username is admin, you cannot change that. So once you register in demo.uipath.com, you will get some kind of a dashboard where you can control and execute the code. This is what is called as a dashboard. You can see this is where you can see number of processes that are mapped to you, number of assets that are mapped to you, number of schedules that you have designed. So you can actually see all that. But I have created an orchestrator account, a web account, but I have not mapped this orchestrator account with my UiPath Studio that is present in my computer. I have not yet linked it. How can I link it? How the orchestrator is linked to my client using something, a service called as UiPath Robot. So UiPath Robot is a service which lets you to connect the studio with the orchestrator. So how do I do this? Go to robots. Each client is called as a robot. So click on plus. I'm adding a new robot. My robot is nothing but this machine. This laptop is my robot. So I'm adding a robot. So click on plus. So standard robot. What is the name of the machine? So I'll just give it as my own laptop, the machine name. I don't think spaces are allowed. Okay.
Jayant, do we need to give any name or like it's a computer name? My lap is.
I think the domain slash username is okay. Sorry, the name is this one. I think the machine name should be your host name. So how do you get your host name? Command prompt. So this should be your machine name. So if you type host name in your command prompt, you will get your machine name. Okay, and the domain slash username, how do you get this? If you type who am I, you'll get it. This is your username. If you type who am I, you'll get the domain slash username. If you type host name, you'll get your machine name. So remember that. And the password will be your login password, with which account you're logging into Windows, your Windows login password. This is critically important if your machine has to work. And what kind of production, what kind of environment? This is just development. So as I said, right, orchestrator connects to these production servers or the client servers depending upon which environment. So I am declaring this laptop as a development server where the client is resided. Okay, so I need to choose what it is. A development server, is it attended server, attended or non-production server. So I need to specify. In fact, there is no production server in here because we are using a community edition. We are using community edition. So that is where we cannot actually deploy that into a different machine. So I'll kind of use my development itself as where I'll deploy as well. I'll show you to execute as well. Okay. I'm clicking on create.
Jayan, the type you selected development, right? What is the other names? So what is the meaning of that?
Attended, unattended is something. See, there are two type of automations when you talk about anything. There is an attended automation, there is an unattended automation. Okay, so what do they exactly mean is, attended automation is something like you are deploying and you are forgetting about that. You are not touching that server again. It's kind of a production server only, but you are not touching it again. So even without or with your presence, the code will start executing. That is unattended. You are not attending it for it at all. Attended automation is where there is a human intervention needed. Something like, see, in the end-to-end process, there are certain chunks where human has to log in and do something manually. There is a human intervention needed. Those come under attended automation. Example, if you take, I have a process where I am trying to execute and read something from a PDF file. Okay, so in the middle of the process, there is a place where I need to validate two signatures, whether those two signatures are matching or not. I can never write a code in my Blue Prism or UiPath to see whether that kind of code key, whether two signatures are matching or not. So now what I'll do is I'll tell the bot to run till that particular point, send an email to me, and I'll let it wait, so that once I receive that email, I'll log into that server, I'll check whether those two signatures are matching or not. As a human, I'll have enough intelligence to see whether it's a forgery or if it's a real signature. If it is a real signature, then I'll pass the value as true, and then let the bot continue and come out. Depending upon the flag value, whether it's true or false, the bot will further continue, whether to reject it or approve it and so on. So there is a human dependency in the process. There is somewhere you are doing something. That is called as an attended automation. That means there is a human intervention there. Unattended is like you don't end to end, you don't have to be anywhere. It will take care of everything on its own. All you have to do is just schedule and forget about it. Daily, tell it to run daily at 8 o'clock, schedule it like recurring schedule, and then forget about it. 8 o'clock automatically triggers, does it things and then finish, and then next day again automatically at 8 it triggers. Got it right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, can we create attended robots in community edition, or like is it a limited one?
we can create attended robots in community edition as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now, I'm creating this robot. So I have created a robot. Okay. Now I need to map it to my laptops. Okay. Now how to see? It says the status disconnected because I only reflected this at my orchestrator end. Now I need to map it to my robot. In the sense, I need to map it to my client. So let us say this is my laptop. This is orchestrator. Using UiPath robot, I'll be able to map. How can I do that is, so there is something called as UiPath robot service. It will be running all the time. Just double click on that. Okay. Click on the settings. I already have one connected, so I'm just disconnecting that. Not worry about this. Okay, so when you do it for the first time, you get like this a fresh instance. Everything is blank, including the machine name. Everything is blank, and then you are supposed to feed in this data. What is a robot key? Is the moment you created in here, right? You get a key generated. This is a machine key. So you copy this machine key and you need to feed into your UiPath robot service settings. This is my robot key, and the URL is https demo.uipath.com. And when you click on connect, so before you click on connect, I go back to my robots and I see my status is present as disconnected. So when I click on connect, so you can see the status has been moved to available and it got connected. Now my laptop and my orchestrator are connected. Now what I'll do is, if you remember, I have created this project called 0612. I'll try to execute this one using my orchestrator. So I'll try to execute this code not from this run button, rather from my orchestrator, from my web application. Now how can I do that is, go back to your code. This is my code, right? In Go Setup, there is an option called as publish. First, we need to publish this code to the orchestrator. This is still at my local only. So click on publish. And it says project successfully published to demo.uipath to my account. Okay, you can also see there is also version controlling. You can also see the package version as well, 14703. This is my package version. So if you go back, refresh, go to my processes, you can actually see project 0612 that we have created, and you can see 14703, the package version. Now which environment do you want me to assign this to? Currently this, but I publish in the whole SDLC phase. I will be publishing this in 3 different scenarios. One scenario is where my development is over, I want to publish this to test servers. The second scenario is testing is over, I'm publishing this to acceptance servers. Third scenario is where my acceptance is over, I'm publishing this to my production instance. So you need to specify to which environment do you want to publish this to. So I might be having a set of 10 machines under production. I might be having set of 10 machines under UAT, and I might be having set of 5 machines under testing, right? But I haven't added anything. I have only added 1 machine so far in this orchestrator under development environment. So let me create 2 more dummy environments. So there are no environments here. I'll create 1 environment for development. And I'll assign my laptop to development environment. I'll create 1 for prod, and I ran out of machines to assign, so I'll assign my laptop only again to prod as well. So my laptop will act as both development and production environment. So going back to my processes, I'll click on plus and I'll assign this process to production for now. So you have to create environments like test environment, UAT environment. So whatever machines you have, be it virtual VSA machines or physical machines within your company, you assign certain machines to each environment. And depending upon how you want to publish this code, to where you want to publish this code, to either to testing servers or to production servers or UAT servers, choose that, and then you click on update. Now you have created a process which has been assigned to production environment. Now how do I run this? Go to jobs, add a new job, add a new schedule. So I'll call this as schedule 2. So I want to select this process and I want to run daily automatically at 8 AM. So in production server, this project will automatically trigger at 8 AM. So tomorrow at 8 o'clock sharp, when we are actually, anyways 8 o'clock is our time tomorrow. Tomorrow 8 o'clock sharp, this will get executed daily. Okay, I think this is in CST, so it says in 5 hours. I might have to change the time to a different time zone. So let me choose our IST. In 1 day. What if I want to do an ad hoc run? I click on the play button. I choose the process. I specify which process that I want. I want to run this in my laptop. So in this particular environment underscore prod, right? So production environment, all machines will come in here. Since I have only enlisted one, only my laptop can be seen. If I log into another laptop, install UiPath Studio there, and then assign it to my production environment, then 2 will come. I can get to choose where I want to run. If I click on start, I want to run in here and I'm clicking on start. Now automatically the code will get executed. If you see, the command has been sent, you can see, and it's running. If you observe, the command has been sent and you can see the applications started running. And now this orchestrator, I don't have to open in my browser only. I can open it from anywhere since it's a web application. So the moment I log in, I open mobile, I go to demo.uipath.com, I log in from my mobile also, I'll be able to pass commands to my machine. I can open the same orchestrator in your laptop, log in with my credentials. If I click on run, that it will automatically execute in my laptop. So I'll be able to, this is what controlling is. So what is actually a control room in any building? So you'll have CC cameras everywhere, in every hall, everything. There'll be one room where you can see in TV all those camera feeds. So you're sitting in one room and you're able to control all the cameras present in that building. That is what a control room ideally is. Alright, so that is what you're doing here as well. You have different clients or you have different development servers and runtime resources. You don't have to, let us say that you want to run a particular code in the server. You don't have to log into that server and go and run that code. You can control it via orchestrator itself. Your orchestrator is connected to the servers using UiPath robot, where you can send the command and automatically the code will get triggered. So your code can be built here and can get published to orchestrator, and automatically the orchestrator can run that code in any of the servers. You guys are clear now how the architecture is present in UiPath? You want me to repeat this again?
Yeah, it would be good if you, repeat it one more time.
Sure. So when you talk about architecture, right, there are 3 different components. One is a client component. A client is nothing but an UiPath Studio. This is the client where you start running your writing your code. This is where you have written your code. This is the UiPath Studio, right? That is what a client is. Okay, and a control room is nothing but an orchestrator where you can execute, schedule the codes that you have written, and then finally there are runtime resources or production resources where you want to get them executed. So ideally, you develop your code in the development server, you test them in the test server, you run them and finally run them in production server. But so that means your code is actually getting built in one computer or in one virtual machine, and your code is getting executed entirely in a different machine in different phases. All right. So how can you link these different servers, production servers, development servers? How can you do that? Is using orchestrator. So the orchestrator is nothing but a kind of a control room or a mapper, which kind of is a connection between these different kind of servers. You have tests, not you don't just have these. You also having a different set of servers. When you talk about SDLC, you'll have a lot of phases. So I have another 10 set of servers here, which are of test. Now your orchestrator is connected to this as well. UiPath robot. And there could be another set for acceptance as well. So you have certain servers dedicated for development purpose only, certain virtual machines dedicated for development purposes only, certain virtual machines are dedicated for production, just for getting the code executed, certain servers have been dedicated for test, right? So there are certain, all these environments present. Now how can you transfer the code between one environment and another? You're writing your code, let us say in this particular, let us say in machine A you're writing your code, since this is a development environment, and you want to get that tested in machine B, which is a test environment. This is one of the machines, and finally once that all the testing is done, you want to run it in machine C, which is now in a production environment. Now how can you traverse the code, how can you transport the code from one machine to another machine, is using an orchestrator. This is kind of a communicator between these kind of servers. The moment you have developed your code here, you need to publish that code to the orchestrator. The moment you publish that code, the code is now accessible via the orchestrator. The moment you publish it, a control room or an orchestrator can access that code. So what happens when you publish it is, you can assign that publish it to code to any of the environments. I'll say, hey, I just published this code, I finished my development, I want to assign this code to testing environment. What it do is, it exposes the code that you have published to the testing environment. The control room will take that code to the testing environment. And any machine in the testing environment will be able to access the code that you have written in client here. Okay, any machine that you have written, any code that you have written in this can be now exposed to the machines here. So you will be able to run the code present in the client A automatically in B as part of the testing. That is what we have done here. Since I have only one laptop, I have added my laptop in dev environment. I also added my laptop in production environment in both the cases, and I have deployed this into production environment, and I have ran that in my laptop only as a production environment. But however, here we'll have multiple machines where I have dedicated some to development, I have dedicated some to testing. So I developed a particular code in one of the machines in development. I have published it to control room. In control room, I said, hey, run this code in one of the testing servers. So I chose that particular testing server and ran it. So once the testing everything is over, then it goes into production. Then I'll say, hey, instead of no production, now testing is over, move that code to production instead. Now in prod, you will be able to run the same code. So that is what on high level that's happening. Your control room will execute or schedule the code you have written in one environment in another machine. So the code you have written in A can be scheduled or executed in B or C. That is what a job of an orchestrator, typical orchestrator. So that is what we have done here. First you need to add these machines to my orchestrator. By default, out of nowhere, not all these machines are mapped to orchestrator. The first job is add all these machines to orchestrator, define which environment each machine belongs to. This belongs to client, this C machine belongs to prod, this B machine belongs to test. So first you need to add all these machines to orchestrator and define which environment do they belong to. Do they belong to testing, do they belong to production, or do they belong to development server? That is what I have done. I have my laptop that got added. So first I added my laptop using UiPath robot. UiPath robot is the service running in your laptop which connects between the orchestrator. So this UiPath service nothing but it is kind of a listener. It is a 24/7 service running. If you go to services.msc, right, you will be able to see that. UiPath robot service. This is kind of a listener which will be listening for the command sent by the orchestrator. When you send the command, right, there should be someone present in your computer trying to receive that command and pass it on to the UiPath studio, right? So that listener is nothing but a UiPath robot service. Whenever your orchestrator sends the command, the one who listens to it, who listens to the command is nothing but the UiPath robot service that's running in your machine. This is the UiPath robot service that is waiting for the commands to be sent from the orchestrator. The moment it receives a command, it triggers your studio. Anyways, so I have added my first step is to add this client's machine to the orchestrator and define which environment they should belong to. That is my first step that I have done. I went to robots. I have added a new robot and assigned it to the development server. I have two environments that I got created, one for dev, one for prod. Here I defined 3, but for now I just created 2, and I have assigned my laptop under both dev and the production. That means I have given client A in here. I also given client A in test as well, because since I have only one for now, I have given the client A under both the, not here, sorry, here. I have given client A under both development and prod for now. So A is my laptop anyway, since I have only one laptop to showcase to you. And next what I did is I published my code. That is the second thing I told, right? You need to publish your code. This is a publish line. I published my code to the orchestrator. The moment I clicked on publish, it got published, and then I was able to access that, and I need to assign that published code. So now that controller or orchestrator can access it, I need to assign this published code to one of the environments, either to a test environment or to a production environment, the assigned code. So what I'm doing now is I'm assigning this to a production environment. I'll say, okay, assign the code to production environment. Any of the machines in this prod environment will be able to run the code that you have designed in here. That is what I have done. I went to processes, I chose that, and I assigned it to prod environment. Now that I have assigned it, now either I can schedule it or I can execute it. So if you want to execute, you can go into jobs and then click on execute. If you want to schedule it, you can go and you can click on the schedule. That is what I have done. I have scheduled this tomorrow at 8 a.m. to daily at 8 a.m. I also just ran an immediate run, went into jobs and immediately I ran it around 10 minutes ago, the production environment. Since there is only one laptop, it did not ask me, so automatically ran in my lap. Since I specified my lap in both dev and production environments, it automatically chose and ran. So we want to run it again open, specify which process you want to run, and all the robots that are present in this environment will come. In this what are there? Example A, B, C, A, C. These two also will be listed in here. But since I have only added one, I can only see one. If there are multiple ones, you can all see all those production servers that have been listed. You can choose the one that you want to start and click on start. So that code that I published will automatically get executed in that machine. Start it again. Now you guys are clear?
It's fine. Jayant, I have one question here.
Yeah.
And
When you click on this publish, so all your code, moving to orchestrator, right?
Yes.
Not to the production server or something.
No. See, when you click on publish, you are moving it to the orchestrator. Now in the orchestrator, you get to decide to which environment you want to assign it to a test environment, to a production environment, or to a Unity acceptance environment. When you click on publish, you are publishing it to the orchestrator. And in orchestrator, you get to decide to where you need to assign, to which environment you want to assign that code, published code to, depending upon which phase you are currently in. Clear?
Okay, so say for example, if you assign a production server or a UAT server, so in that scenario, our code will go and sit in the UAT server or production server, and from there it will execute. Is it?
Exactly.
Okay, so that means a copy of our code will be moving there.
Exactly. So now, if you remember, how many times did I publish? Twice I published. One is before there. Now when I'm explaining, I published it again, right? So there are two versions of the code present now. If I go here, right, in my processes, I can in fact load. When I choose the process, you can see there are two versions. This is when I first did it. Second time, and now when explaining, I got 15126. I can publish. I can run a particular version of the code as well. So let us say that I published one code today. I modified some things. I published again tomorrow. Now I can run which code I want to. So that way, now what I can do is I'll assign this to prod environment, dev environment 15126. Okay, it's not already deployed. I can only push to production. They're saying that I already deployed a different version of this in here, so I need to delete this one, and then I can get to choose which version I want to deploy. You can see I get to deploy version as well. Choose the version if I want to run the old code or if I want to run the new code. Clear?
Yeah, so if you want to run the new code, you need to delete the old code, is it?
You don't have to delete. You get to, if you want to run the old code, let us say, all you have to do is go and click on rollback. So this is the one I want to choose. So all I do is I push this use. So now the current version is set to this one. You can see I pushed it to the previous version. From the list of versions, I can choose which build I want to execute. Now let us say no, I don't want the old one, I want the new one. I need to choose use. So this way I'll be able to use a particular version of the code. Clear?
Okay.
So the public versions is present here. You can choose which one you want to execute.
Okay.
Jayan,
So in this case,
here,
we don't need code migration and all, is it?
No, there is no need of actually exporting the code and importing. There is no such thing. If you are the only reason where you need to export and import is when both the machines, let us say your machine A is there, your machine B is there. No, both are linked to a different orchestrators. Then you need to migrate the code physically because they are present in two different orchestrators. Got it? Only then you need to physically export and import the code because they don't share a same orchestra in that scenario.
Jayan, so what is the best practice for this? Like, can we have the different orchestrators for the different environments, or like?
See, ideally, what we are doing currently is we are maintaining two different set of orchestrators for the control perspective. See,
Okay.
the tester should not have access to production orchestrator. The operate team or the production support team should not have access to testing orchestrator. As a testing team, they should have access to orchestrator, right? So because they want to run in the testing environments. But when we give them the access, they indirectly will get access to production ones as well. So we kind of are maintaining two different set of orchestrators.
Okay, one is for the tester and one is for the production operations.
Exactly.
And can we create multiple robots for the same server?
Multiple robots for the same server. No,
Yeah,
each
same
server itself is a robot. Each
robot.
virtual server is called as a robot.
Okay, I mean, so you said in the robot apps you created one my lappy is there, right? So if I want to create my lappy 2 with the same
If
server
you want to
name,
create a new account in your laptop,
okay,
you can create a new account in your laptop and assign the second account as a new robot. So a virtual
okay,
machine can support up to two accounts parallelly, right? So
yeah,
indirectly a server can have two robots.
okay. So
Okay.
I was supposed to use a different account. So
You log in with a different account. So when you are giving, right, you have given the host name, you are also given the username and password.
yes,
Those are my username and password. All I have to do is go and create a new account in here and specify the second username and password is a different robot.
okay,
Okay.
yeah, got it.
So we'll get to use this orchestrator a lot going forward. Your queue management, your input param, asset values, all these things will come into picture in orchestrator. So going forward, we are going to use them. So don't worry, we'll have more hands-on orchestrator. This is not just the only class. So going forward, we'll be using both orchestrator and studio parallelly. Clear?
Yeah, okay.
All right, guys.
So in this case, publish means it will publish all the like variables and everything.
Yes. We'll publish the whole code.
Okay.
See, when you're publishing, right, ideally you need to ensure that, see, no, I typically, even though I publish it to publish this code, I cannot exactly run this code in a different laptop. The reason because I have hard coded my Excel path, I have hard coded my Excel.exe, application.exe. The ideal scenario should be that the path also should be the same in that particular desktop as well. The exe file also should be present in the same path as well. Ideally is there, right? So ideally what we do is we place this Excel file in a shared drive and we give the shared drive path. So no matter where it is running, the shared drive path will still be the same, right? A shared drive or a SharePoint, and we'll map it and then we'll execute from there, right? So the shared drive path will not change no matter which machine you're running from. So we need to make this path as generic as possible. No matter where it runs, it should get executed. See, browser-based applications you do not have to worry because the browser path is always the same. The application URL is always the same. The Excel or any input or template files you don't have to worry because you can place them in the shared drive. The only thing you have to worry is about the Windows applications. So if you are planning to execute a particular process which has a Windows application involved, that production instance of that server also should have that Windows application installed, be it SAP or Salesforce or whatever it is. Clear, right? The Windows application also should be installed in that instance for the code to execute. If they cannot find the executable file there, it obviously would fail. If I go and run this in a different machine, I expect that anytile.exe is also present in the same place. Clear?
Now my question is here, when you are using browser-based application, so
Yeah.
sometimes the URLs will be different, right? For development instance, it's different, and production instance, it's different, right? So how
Those
do you
you can
maintain
pass
this?
them as environmental variables. See, we have set and get environmental variables in UiPath. Okay, so what I would do is I will not hard code that URL here. I'll let it bring that value from the environmental variable. And we have system specific environmental variables, user specific, right? In production servers, I give environmental variables with the production URLs. In test servers, I give URLs with the test URLs. Got it, right? So instead of using these variables, I use environmental system generated environmental variables, the variable values. Clear?
Okay.
Yeah. You can also pass them as runtime. If you talk here, right? Whenever you are executing, it is asking for input parameters, the runtime variables. We haven't defined anything. That is the reason. If you go back and if you click on jobs, when you click on run, right, you are getting something like as input parameters. Can you see? Let me add one. I'll show you. In parameters, you have not defined any, but you can actually define some runtime variables. You can pass that value. So anything you feel that should be passed during runtime can be passed. I haven't added any. I'll show you how this is done. How runtime variables can be added, how assets can be added, how queue management can be added. All these things will come in future classes, but I'm just giving you a highlight. I can pass the values during runtime as well. Here, I haven't defined any, but if I defined, I would be able to pass the parameter value in here. That value will be taken into consideration when that is getting executed. Clear?
Okay.
Obviously, your test environment file and your production environment file not be the same. If for your testing environment, the shared drive path would be different. For your production files, the shared drive path could be, you'll be maintaining two different set of folders, one for production, one for test, right? Those values will pass them as environmental variables or assets or input parameters, whatever you feel comfortable. We'll explore all the three options. Don't worry. Okay. Any questions?
No, Jay.
All right. So coming to the variables, right? It is always recommended not to define your variable values directly within the code. What we do is we create a config file. Any development, if you take, that's what people do. They create an XML file, right? Any development project, they create a config file where all this they specify all the variable values, and your code will execute it. Every time the code is getting executed, it reads the variable values from the Excel or XML file, and then it feeds in the variables. So in future, let us say something got changed, the Excel path or the application path or the URL changed. I do not have to go open the code and then change it and publish it again. All I have to do is open that Excel file and then change the variable value. That Excel file I'll place in a shared drive. So the application name or the URLs or the variable values, everything we store in an Excel or XML file, a config file, we call that as. Clear?
Okay.
All right, guys, and let's catch up in tomorrow's class. We'll take this further. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye, guys.